You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. To stop tyranny? Well, so does he. Live from the Infowars.com studios, it's Alex Jones.
Welcome to the Alex Jones Show on this Sunday, January 18th, 2015. I'm David Knight. I'll be your host today. We have some amazing stories that have come out. We've got some new leaks from the Snowden documents that have been reported on exclusively by Der Spiegel, talking about how mass surveillance is only phase 0 for our government's plans. Phase 3, to give you a hint, is domination. If you didn't know that already, we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. But we have another amazing story, another exclusive from the Daily Mail about a screenwriter who was mysteriously killed in 1997 after he'd finished a script and it was on his way to deliver the script, a script that he said was going to show the real reason behind the Panama invasion. And this is a guy that, as they've done the investigation over the intervening 18 years or so, this is a guy that had intimate connections with the CIA. And, of course, he's not the only one. We saw this with the interview that just came out with Sony, how you had the State Department approving the script and saying, yeah, we want you to push that. A RAND Corporation consultant saying, that's going to be very useful because we've got to plant the idea in the minds of people, especially in the minds of South Korea and these DVDs that are going to find their way into North Korea. We need to plant the idea that the only way that we're going to get regime change in North Korea is through assassination. So there's a very deliberate attempt. You can see it in Zero Dark 30. So many different movies. We're going to talk about some of the other movies that have just come out in the last week. Selma, American Sniper. If you've seen those movies, we're going to take your calls. We have a different number on Sunday. That is 877-789-2539 or 877-789-ALEX. So we want to talk about the CIA's influence in Hollywood, of course, how they get rid of journalists like we've seen in many cases. They also get rid of screenwriters. This is an amazing story. I think you'll find the details be very interesting. Also, there's now a Gitmo guard who has gone public with a book. His conscience was bothering him. He said he personally knows of a case where CIA killed prisoners and made it look like suicide. So we're going to talk about that. See, it's not just journalists like Michael Hastings. It's not just screenwriters like this fellow Gary DeVore. It's anyone that opposes the government. And when we look at the fact that they want to dominate us through the internet, that is something we should all be very concerned about. We're going to talk about, I think, really the nuclear weapon to use against tyranny. It's a peaceful weapon. It's knowing what your rights are about jury nullification. We're going to see how that is coming to play in the trial of the person accused of running Silk Road. There's a massive jury nullification movement. They're trying to educate people what their rights are because a lot of the people think that you shouldn't go to jail for running a website. Regardless of what people are doing with it, there's a certain number of people, I think they make a good case that you shouldn't go to jail just for running a website. Now, of course, we've got people like Barrett Brown who were sent to jail because they linked to some websites. This is a very dangerous area that we're getting in, especially when we look at the fact that the CIA essentially is abusing their power. The NSA is abusing their power. They're doing whatever they wish, knowing that they're not going to be held legally accountable. And along those lines, there was an interesting story that came out today on Reuters. They're exclusive, saying the White House says that net neutrality legislation is not needed. Let me tell you why the White House doesn't think they need legislation for net neutrality. He says net neutrality rules aren't needed because the FCC has the authority to write them. You see, we don't need Congress to make the laws because Congress is nothing but a useless appendage. They exist presumptively just to run the graft that keeps our federal government running. They can hand out the money to the corporate donors of both the Democrats and Republicans. But as far as legislation, we don't need them because we've got regulatory bureaucracies that will write the laws for you. that are not accountable to the people in any way, shape, or form. That's what Obama is saying. That's what we've seen. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. We'll be taking your calls.
When cells become toxic, they die early and aging sets in. No one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. Just one of the key compounds, BioPQQ, is backed by major clinical studies. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? We now have the synergistic solution. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
The average person's life is filled with unexpected challenges. Unlock the energy it takes to defeat these daily beasts with super male or super female vitality, specifically designed to assist the body in regulating proper hormone balance to create superior vitality in males and females. Supercharge and conquer your world at InfoWarsLife.com or call 1-888-253-3139.
As a community moves towards despotism, respect is restricted to fewer people.
That's veteran Denver police officer Charles Jones IV smashing an unarmed suspect in the face 6 times.
Officers accused of using excessive force on a suspect and then trying to erase the evidence.
I'm observing what they're doing and they're arresting me. I don't understand what's going on.
A community rates low on an information scale when the press, radio, and other channels of communication are controlled by only a few people.
Does it raise ethical questions about the use of government money to produce stories about the government that wind up being aired with no disclosure that they were produced by the government?
How can you ask such a question?
What difference at this point does it make?
When a competent observer looks for signs of despotism in the community, he looks beyond fine words and noble phrases.
There are actions I have the legal authority to take as president that will help make our immigration system more fair and more just. Tonight, I'm announcing those actions.
What I say goes, see? I'm the law around here.
He came, he saw, he died.
Yes, in modern warfare, our military leaders are finding that words and ideas are highly effective weapons.
We just have to be repetitive about this. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
We are trained to deceive if we have to. You really don't have to trust me. You shouldn't trust me. In fact, by my actually participating in that, I will taint the news.
In communities of this kind, despotism stands a good chance.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Okay, Ms. Hughes, well, we're going to do everything we can to help you.
Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. It's the Alex Jones Show, because there is a war on for your mind.
Welcome to the Alex Jones Show, this live edition on Sunday, January the 18th, 2015. We have some amazing stories to cover. As I just mentioned in the last segment, there's an exclusive story from the Daily Mail about a screenwriter who mysteriously disappeared in 1997 after he'd finished writing the script for a movie that was going to show, as he put it, the real reason for the Panama invasion. Now, this wasn't a guy who had just come up with a wild theory. This is somebody who had very deep ties with the CIA in Hollywood. And as we've reported, that's something that is pervasive throughout Hollywood. We've seen this with the Sony interview. We've seen it with Zero Dark 30. We've seen John Rizzo, the former chief counsel for the CIA, writing in his autobiography, Company Man, how this is a guy who justified the use of torture, things like waterboarding and so forth. Talking about how they had resources in Hollywood that were very eager to be used by the CIA, people that they'd use on both the left and the right of the political spectrum to do what they wanted to do. But here's a case of a screenwriter who I believe, and many people believe, may have seen some things that really did show the real reason for our invasion of Panama. Disappearing, and when he shows up, he's missing both hands. And of course, his script is missing. But now they're starting to put the clues together. And these British documentary filmmakers were visited by a contractor from the Department of Defense, told to drop the project. So I think that's why they went with the Daily Mail. But we're going to talk about what they have discovered. We're also going to talk about some other new movies that have come out that I believe are instruments of propaganda, not just The Interview from Sony, not just Zero Dark 30 from Sony, but things like American Sniper or Selma. How are they being used to manipulate the public? Is it something that is just the personal point of view of the director, of Clint Eastwood, of Oprah Winfrey, or is it perhaps deeper? So we're going to talk about that, and if you've seen those two movies, give us a call. We want to talk to you. We're going to be taking calls today. The number on Sunday is 877-789-2539. That's 877-789-ALEX. Now, there's also another story that came out, another exclusive, this one from Der Spiegel in Germany. It's a release of some more Snowden documentation that shows that the NSA is saying that phase 0 of what they plan to do was merely the mass surveillance. There's a phase 1, a phase 2, a phase 3 is domination. So we're going to talk about what's behind that, what they have revealed about that, essentially saying that with domination, their goal is real-time controlled escalation. They say that under the dominate phase, they will control and destroy critical systems and networks at will through pre-positioned access that, of course, has been laid in phase 0. So we're going to talk about that in depth. And finally, the third thing we're going to talk about in depth is jury nullification. This is one of the things that you can do if you understand your rights. If you don't know what your rights are, you don't have any rights. If you don't exercise your rights, you have no rights. So you need to understand what's going on with jury nullification. As they just showed on the screen there, this is all coming to the forefront in a trial that's going on in Manhattan now. They're preparing for this. I believe it starts this Tuesday. But some fully informed jury activists have shown up at the court, and they've been very effective at informing people about Fully Informed Jury Association, the FIJA movement. And the judge is so upset about this that she has threatened to create a secret jury. In other words, busing people in from another area outside of the city, busing them in so they don't see the protesters, keeping them sequestered so that she can deceive them and lie to them about what the law is. So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But first, I want to go to this story that came out of the Daily Mail about the screenwriter who disappeared. And we should all be very concerned when we see our government assassinating people who are providing information to the public. People, journalists like Michael Hastings, or this screenwriter who essentially had had enough and wanted to come out with the information that he thought was incredibly criminal. So when we see this type of thing happen, and this has a lot of very suspicious circumstances with it, just like the Michael Hastings case. To give you an overview of this screenwriter, Gary DeVore, had written movies like Raw Deal and Time Cop. Raw Deal was a Schwarzenegger movie. There's pictures in this article of him hanging out with a lot of people in Hollywood. Kurt Russell, Arnold Schwarzenegger, many action film stars. They say his body was found after it disappeared a year later in a California aqueduct. But there was some strange circumstances about this. Not only were both of his hands missing from the car that he was driving, right? His script was never found. Now they say that even a former White House official has confirmed that he was working with the CIA in Panama. Now, he was on his way at the time, they point out, to deliver a film script, and it was going to give the real reason that we invaded Panama, according to him. The interesting thing was how the car wound up. It wound up going the wrong way for the way that he should be driving. So some people said, well, perhaps he got off to take a break and he got confused and got on the wrong side of the road and then ran into the aqueduct. The problem is that he would have had to have driven 2 miles going the wrong way. There were no lights on this highway, yet when they found the car, the headlights were turned off. So he was driving the wrong way, going that way for 2 miles. And of course, this is a guy who had previously been a long-distance truck driver. They say that he never wore his seatbelt. He never wore his, never carried his wallet in his back pocket, as was something that he had started doing as a long-distance truck driver. But both of those things were there. So he was seatbelted in, and he had his wallet in his back pocket. But of course, the amazing thing is that he had no hands. He was driving apparently with no hands. They say that the research team that was putting this together was warned to drop the investigation by a Department of Defense contractor. They've also secured testimony from the coroner that reveals that human hands that they later found in the car, disconnected, were in fact around 200 years old. Now, here's the amazing thing. Now, these documentary producers, I can understand that they're scared if they have gone